Linda Louise, Lady McCartney was an American musician, photographer and animal rights activist, and was married to Paul McCartney, a founding member of the Beatles. In 1969, Paul McCartney married Linda Eastman, and their marriage was blessed at St John's Wood Church. Later, they formed McCartney's band, Wings. In the same year Paul adopted Heather Louise, Linda's daughter from her first marriage to Joseph Melville See. The McCartneys had 3 children, Mary Anna, Stella Nina, and James Louis. She wrote several vegetarian cookbooks, became a business entrepreneur, and was a professional photographer, publishing Linda McCartney's 60s, Portrait of an Era. McCartney was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995, and died at the age of 56 on April 17, 1998, in Tucson, Arizona, where the McCartneys had a ranch. Early years: Linda Louise McCartney, the second eldest of 4 children, was born Linda Louise Eastman in New York City. She had 1 older brother, John, and 2 younger sisters, Laura, and Louise Jr. She grew up in the Scarsdale area of Westchester County, New York, and she graduated from Scarsdale High School in 1959. Her father was born Leopold Vail Epstein, the son of Jewish-Russian immigrants, who later changed his name to Lee Eastman. An often repeated but untrue urban myth holds that Linda was related to the George Eastman family of Eastman Kodak fame. Her father was the attorney for songwriter Jack Lawrence, and at his request in 1942, Lawrence, while in the Army, wrote a song called Linda, in honor of the 1-year-old. It was published in 1946, and recorded by Buddy Clark in 1947. John Eastman later became Paul McCartney's attorney and manager. McCartney's mother, Louise Sarah Eastman, was from a German Jewish family. The daughter of Max J. Lindner, a founder of the Lindner Company clothing store in Cleveland, Ohio. Louise died in the crash of American Airlines Flight 1 in Queens, New York, in 1962. McCartney later said that because of her mother's death, she hated traveling by air. McCartney received an Associate of Arts degree from Vermont College in 1961 and studied for a fine art major at the University of Arizona. Her first marriage was to Joseph Melville See Jr., whom she had met in college. They married on June 18, 1962, and their daughter Heather Louise was born on December 31, 1962. They were divorced in June 1965. McCartney later commented that See was a nice man, a geologist, an Ernest Hemingway type. See committed suicide by gunshot on March 19, 2000, at his home in Tucson, Arizona. Photography: McCartney started work as a receptionist for Town & Country magazine, and was the only unofficial photographer on board the SSC Panther yacht on the Hudson River who was allowed to take photographs of the Rolling Stones during a record promotion party. Although she had previously only studied the photography of horses in Arizona at an art center with a teacher, Hazel Archer, she was later asked to be the house photographer at the Fillmore East Concert Hall, and supposedly became a popular groupie. McCartney photographed artists such as Aretha Franklin, Grace Slick, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, Eric Clapton, Simon and Garfunkel, The Who, The Doors, The Animals, John Lennon and Neil Young. She photographed Young in 1967, and the picture was used for the front cover of Sugar Mountain. Live at Canterbury House 1968 and 2008. She photographed Clapton for Rolling Stone magazine, becoming the first woman to have a photograph featured on the front cover. She and husband Paul also appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone on January 31, 1974, making her the only person to have taken a photograph, and to have been photographed, for the front cover of the magazine. Her photographs were later exhibited in more than 50 galleries internationally, as well as at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. A collection of photographs from that time, Linda McCartney's 60s, Portrait of an Era, was published in 1993. She also took the photograph for the cover of Paul McCartney's and Michael Jackson's single, The Girl Is Mine. Music career. After the breakup of the Beatles in 1970, Paul taught Linda to play keyboards and recorded an album with her, Ram, as a duo. Afterwards, he included her in the lineup of his subsequent group, Wings. the group garnered several Grammy Awards, becoming one of the most successful British bands of the 1970s, but had to endure jibes regarding Linda's singing. She later admitted that the accusations about her singing out of tune in the early days with Wings were true. In 1977, a reggae-inspired single entitled Seaside Woman was released by an obscure band called Susie and the Red Stripes on Epic Records in the United States. In reality, Susie and the Red Stripes were Wings, with Linda on lead vocals. The song had been recorded by Wings in 1972, in response to a lawsuit by Northern Songs and Macklin Music alleging Paul violated an exclusive rights agreement by collaborating on the song Another Day, which had the effect of transferring a 50% share of the publishing royalties to his own McCartney Music Company. The lawsuit, which alleged that Linda's co-writing credits were inauthentic and that she was not a real songwriter, was amicably settled, according to an ATV spokesman, in June 1972. The McCartneys shared an Oscar nomination for the co-composition of the song Live and Let Die. Linda's album Wide Prairie, which included Seaside Woman, was released posthumously in 1998. Paul worked with the help of Beatles engineer Geoff Emerick to finish the album. Along with 8 other British composers, Paul contributed to the choral album A Garland for Linda, and dedicated his classical album, Ich Corne Moon, to his late wife. In January 1999, the Light Comes From Within single from the Wide Prairie album was banned by TV and radio stations in the UK. Paul placed advertisements in English national newspapers asking parents to give guidance as to whether their children could be morally corrupted by the song lyrics, which included the lines, "You say I'm simple, you say I'm a hick, you're fucking no one, you stupid dick." McCartney and children. On May 15, 1967, Heather and Linda Eastman met McCartney at a Georgie Fame concert at the Bagonelles Club in London. She was in the UK on an assignment to take photographs of swinging 60s musicians in London. The two later went to the Speakeasy Club on Margaret Street to see Procol Harum. They met again 4 days later at the launch party for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band at Brian Epstein's house in Belgravia. When her assignment was completed, she flew back to New York City. In May 1968, they met again in New York, as John Lennon and Paul McCartney were there to announce the formation of Applecore. In September of the same year, Paul phoned her and asked her to fly over to London. They were married 6 months later in a small civil ceremony at Marylebone Registry Office on March 12, 1969. After giving birth to Mary McCartney, Stella McCartney and James McCartney, Linda said that 4 children was enough. She became Lady McCartney when her husband was knighted in 1997. Her brother, entertainment lawyer John Eastman, has represented McCartney since the breakup of the Beatles. McCartney has 8 grandchildren, all of whom were born after her death. Mary's 4 sons Arthur Alistair Donald McCartney, Elliot Donald, Sam Aboud and Sid Aboud, and Stella's children, Miller Alastair James Willis McCartney, daughter Bailey Linda Olwyn Willis, Beckett Robert Lee Willis, and Riley Dyler Stella Willis. Lifestyle, vegetarianism. McCartney introduced her husband to vegetarianism in 1975, and promoted a vegetarian diet through her cookbooks, Linda McCartney a Euro unregistered trademark S Home Cooking, Linda Euro unregistered trademark S Kitchen and simple and inspiring recipes for meatless meals. She explained her change to vegetarianism by saying that she did not eat anything with a face. If slaughterhouses had glass walls, the whole world would be vegetarian. Animal rights. The McCartneys became outspoken vegetarians and animal rights activists. In 1991, she introduced a line of frozen vegetarian meals under the Linda McCartney Foods name, which made her wealthy independently of her husband. The H.J. Heinz Company acquired the company in March 2000, and the Heinz Celestial Group bought it in 2007. As a strong advocate for animal rights, Linda lent her support to many organizations such as People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, the Council for the Protection of Rural England and Friends of the Earth. She was also a patron of the League Against Cruel Sports. She narrated a TV advertisement for PETA, in which she said, "Have you ever seen a fish gasping for breath when you take it out of the water?" The Euro unregistered trademark re-saying, Thanks a lot for killing me. It feels great, unregistered trademark no. It hurts. After her death, PETA created the Linda McCartney Memorial Award. Drugs. In 1984, she was arrested in Barbados for possession of marijuana. Her husband had been arrested in Los Angeles for possession of marijuana in 1975. After flying to Heathrow Airport, London, she was arrested on charges of possession. She later commented that hard drugs were disgusting, but marijuana is pretty lightweight. Death. McCartney was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995, and her condition soon grew worse as it spread to her liver. She died at the age of 56 on April 17, 1998, at the McCartney family ranch in Tucson, Arizona. She was cremated in Tucson, and her ashes were scattered at the McCartney farm in Sussex. Her husband later suggested that fans remember her by donating to breast cancer research charities that do not support animal testing, or the best tribute to Go Veggie. A memorial service was held for her at St. Martin in the Fields in London, which was attended by George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Elton John, Peter Gabriel and other celebrities among a congregation of 700. A memorial service was also held at Riverside Church in Manhattan, 2 months after her death. Talking later about the medication used to treat her breast cancer, Paul McCartney said, "If a drug has got to be used on humans then legally it has to be finally tested on an animal." This was difficult for Linda when she was undergoing her treatment. He also claimed that she was unsure if the drugs she took had been tested on animals. During the treatment, a nice answer is a nice answer, and if they say, "It's okay to have this because we didn't test it on animals," you are going to believe them. She left her entire fortune to her husband in a special trust, known as a qualified domestic trust, which allows deferral of estate taxes due on her assets until after his death. He will have access to any royalties from books, records and any financial remuneration for the use of his wife's photographs. He is pledged to continue her line of vegetarian food, and to keep it free from genetically modified organisms. Wide Prairie, a 6-minute cartoon fantasy film by Linda McCartney and director Oscar Grillo, premiered at the Edinburgh International Film Festival on August 19, 1998. It was shown before the British premiere of The Horse Whisperer, starring Robert Redford. On April 10, 1999, Paul McCartney performed at the Concert for Linda tribute at the Royal Albert Hall, with numerous artists including George Michael, The Pretenders, Elvis Costello and Tom Jones. In January 2000, he announced donations in excess of $2 million for cancer research at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York and the Arizona Cancer Center in Tucson, where Linda received treatment. The centers received $1 million each. The donations, through the Garland Appeal, were made on the condition that no animals would be used for testing purposes. In 2000, the Linda McCartney Centre, a cancer clinic, opened at the Royal Liverpool University Hospital. In November 2002, the Linda McCartney Kintyre Memorial Trust opened a memorial garden in Campbelltown, the main town in Kintyre, with the dedication of a bronze statue of her by sculptor Jane Robbins, McCartney's cousin, which was commissioned and donated by McCartney. Portrayals on screen, Linda McCartney and husband Paul appeared as themselves on an episode of Bread in 1988, and an episode of The Simpsons, called Lisa the Vegetarian, in 1995. After her death, The Simpsons' 200th episode Trash of the Titans, which aired on April 26, 1998, and Paul McCartney's Tuesday from 2000 was dedicated both to her memory. Simpsons executive producer Mike Scully said, "It just seemed like the right thing to do. Everyone here was surprised and saddened by her death." Elizabeth Mitchell and Gary Bakewell played the McCartneys in the 2000 TV movie The Linda McCartney Story. She was portrayed as Linda Eastman in the 1985 TV movie John and Yoko, A Love Story. Discography. Solo albums, Wide Prairie, solo singles, Paul and Linda McCartney, Ram, session work, Paul McCartney, Denny Lane, Holidays, Denny Lane, Japanese Tears, Paul McCartney, McCartney 2, Paul McCartney, Tug of War, Paul McCartney, Pipes of Peace, Paul McCartney, Give My Regards to Broad Street, Paul McCartney, Press to Play, Paul McCartney, Flowers in the Dirt, Paul McCartney, Off the Ground, Paul McCartney, Flaming Pie. Notes. References: Fields, Danny. Linda McCartney. Time Warner. ISBN A978-0-7515-2985-2. Halstead, Craig. Michael Jackson, For the Record. Authors Online. ISBN A978-0-7552-0267-6. McCartney, Paul. Sir Paul McCartney on Linda. The Sunday Times. Miles, Barry. Many Years From Now. Vintage Random House. ISBN A978-0-7493-8658-0. Spiz, Bob. The Beatles The Biography. Little, Brown and Company. ISBN A978-0-316-80352-6. External links, media related to Linda McCartney at Wikimedia Commons, The Path of the Vegetarian by Linda McCartney, Linda McCartney quotes, biography of Linda McCartney at Wingspan, footage of Linda McCartney in 1984.